Slack and E-Major welcome you to the My Type of Hype podcast, where we celebrate hip-hop, not just the hype.
How y'all feel out there?
Oh, yeah.
Welcome back, everyone, to an episode of the My Type of Hype podcast with me, your boy Slack, in the building, as always. Joined, as always, by my co-defendant. On my left, what's happening, my brother?
Bless, man. We're here. My Type of Hype. E-Major in the house, celebrating hip-hop and not just the hype. Slack's in the house, E-Major's in the house. And as you can see, we have another fresh face, a familiar face, but another fresh face. Introduce yourself, brother. What are you saying?
Salute to you, man. Potter, to my friends, Reggie Macworthy on the socials. So, I'm just here to see if I can drop some knowledge that may not have been dropped before.
So we had a bit of a hiatus, as it were. Had a lot going on between us. So we decided that we'll add another element to the show so we can keep it rolling. If I'm not available, if he's not available, or if Potter's not available, then one of us will be around, and we're going to keep it rolling. I think it's been 2, maybe 3 months break. So
it's been a minute,
few people hit me up, man, asking us when the show's coming back and stuff like that. So that's really dope, man, for you guys to be still, requesting the show to come back. So we ain't never gonna leave, man, but we might be away for a little bit. Let's put it that way. So, what's the topic of discussion today?
Yes. So this is actually one of your tweets that you put out a while back. You put out to the people, you was asking about who had the most improved album from their debut to their second album, basically, who had the best improved album. So obviously that sparked some good conversation. And I looked at that and I thought, yeah, man, that would be good for a podcast topic, man. So yeah, that's what we're looking at today. Groups, MCs, whatever, who had the best improved second album from their first. So disclaimer, we ain't saying that the first album's whack or nothing like that, but just the best improvement from the first to the second. So yeah, man, thought we'd chop it up a bit about that. So yeah.
Right. Nice. Well, as you can see,
harder than you might think as well. Like the subject.
Yeah. For real. And try to keep it a little different. But as you can see, guys, the show has been colonized. So we're gonna have to throw it. We're gonna throw it to the guy who did the colonizing to start off.
Oh, so I get to go first?
Yeah, well, you colonized the show, innit? So
yeah, all right. Well, I'm not gonna throw out my most obscure pick, all right, but so for me, one of the 5 that I've got, Corrupt. So the step up from Corruption, which wasn't terrible, but I think all of us would probably agree it was
not great,
a little bit disappointing, considering what 100%. It was. And I thought the West Coast disc was much better than the East Coast disc, which I was a little bit surprised about. But then the year after, Streets is a Mother came out, and that, I think, 98, 99, 99.
Yeah, 99. Yeah, Streets is a Mother is 99. I think the debut was 98.
Was 97, right? Wasn't it?
Oh, was it?
98, bro.
Was it 98? Okay.
I swear it was, yeah.
You could be right, yeah. Okay, I'll go with that.
But I think Streets is a Mother that's the album that I think we all wanted from Corrupt first time round. Like the production was banging, Daz is all over it, Superfly, Fred Wreck, like it's all banging. And I know Slack's going to agree with me with this, with calling out names where my guy's he's dissing anyone and everyone, dissing films, whatever. One of the hardest. But for me, that was the most improved sophomore from him, because I think we all had kind of like Meth, I guess, really. We all had real high expectations from Corrupt for the first album. Didn't quite deliver because I guess the whole Death Row imploding was still kind of going on then. Yeah. And then we got Streets as a Mother, and I'm like, this is where the DPG have been doing this.
What's your favorite joint on there, bro?
I think to be honest, it's weird, but I think Ho's the housewife. Like I love the beat. I like Trey D's on it as well. Like that's probably my favorite tune. That or Loose Cannons. Like it starts the and who produced that tune? Organized Noise produced that. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So that just grabs you from the beginning of the album, and then I'm like,
I always loved that. I ain't shit without my homeboy song. I don't know why, man.
Oh yeah,
that song is a repeater for me, man. I love that song.
Yeah, it's a dope album. Like,
yeah, it's a really good album. It doesn't really get spoken about that much, to be honest with you.
Nah, and I think it should, because like for me, as far as like obviously you guys know that I'm banging to West Coast rap. For me, that's up there with some of the best West Coast albums, I think, from personally. Like I'm sure people can argue about that all day, but personally, I think that's up there with some of the better ones.
I think you find like a lot of the Death Row albums that weren't Dre produced, they don't really get their props. Like we could look at the Lady Rage album. I was listening to that album. I was like, this album is actually fire. This like you got Primo and shit on there, but it's like people forget that some people don't even know that album came out, and they don't know that it came out on Death Row.
It's Baz's album as well.
Baz's album too. Yeah, exactly. But I think you get a lot of that where people weren't really checking for it once Dre left and Pac died and everything like that. Then like Death Row.
Snoop's sophomore project was terrible.
Yeah. So it was a bit of a weird time. Yeah, no, that's a great pick, man. E, what you got first, bro?
Yeah, I'm glad you picked that, actually, because I was thinking the other day about that. And we always talk about the Cannabises and Snoop and Raekwon even as disappointing albums. But when I say Raekwon, obviously I mean Immobilarity. But what's it called? I found Corruption really disappointing, man. Like for who Corrupt is, man, I was bitterly disappointed at that. So yeah, that's a very good shout. I didn't even think of that one. All right, who am I going to go with? Obviously, like we said, there's some very obvious ones we can go with. You know what? I'm gonna kick off and piss Slack off straight away. It's been long, bro. It's been you know what I mean. It's been a long time. I gotta get back now. But
this is brilliant.
I know, innit? Now, I'm gonna go with Fat Joe. I know Slack's probably like every album is weak, but the reason I'm gonna go at Fat Joe was because I actually thought Fat Joe the Gangster. Oh, innit? You know what, man? That's funny. That is funny. But no, Fat Joe represent. I mean, I thought that was a decent album. Yeah, we all know Fat Joe is not a lyrical guy. Do you know what I mean? Until he met Pun, but he's not a lyrical guy. But I liked the debut album. I thought it was okay. But for me, Jealous One's Envy in '95. That's a personal classic for me. Like I absolutely love that album.
Not a Fat Joe fan, but that album's fine.
Yeah, solid, man. I'll put that up against any '95 album, any album that came out that year, and it's a contender.
Any '95 album,
any album, bro.
No. When I say any, I mean '95. My favorite year in hip hop. I mean, I say '95 and '96. They're almost joint. Yeah, for my favorite years. '95 for me. The albums that dropped to '95 are incredible. When I say I'd put that Jealous One's Envy up against anyone, what I mean is the quality of that album to me. The reason I say it's a personal classic and not a general classic is because I know a lot of people don't feel that way about it. So it has to be a personal classic if majority of heads don't feel like that. But for me, for my preference, I'm thinking about in '95, '96, them times. If I'm going by the albums I played the most, I can't even lie, bro. That Fat Joe was in my CD player a long time. Like I listened to that a lot. So if you're weighing it up like that compared to what I listened to in '95, it has to be like a top 5 contender for me, not for.
It's been a while since It's been a while since I revisited that for.
I love it, man. Production.
DITC are all over that, aren't they?
Yeah. It's a DITC production, maybe.
Yeah, obviously the Primo tracks on there. Just for me, I don't think it puts a foot wrong. Like every track on there, I'm feeling like every track. The way it starts, Bronx Tale with KRS-One. I just think it's sick, man. Like actually, tell a lie, the only track I don't really like is Envy, the Marvin Gaye sample track, and I just don't like it. I just don't like it that much. But every other track for me, I used to bump that so hard. Around them times, I used to skip school a lot and not go in. And there'd be so many times I'd be at home on my stepdad's system, just blasting that album, man. Like, yeah, incredible. So I think for me, that if we're looking at improvement wise, because if we're looking at 93, you're not going to put Fat Joe's debut album against hardly anyone than 93. Do you know what I mean? It's forgettable. But that Jealous One's Envy in 95 for me is incredible, man. Personal classic, definitely.
You know what? This discussion has made me think. It's really interesting to me how some people came out with their debuts and then they always struggled to hit the heights of that debut. And I know we've all got someone in mind with that. So we can say Snoop with Doggy Style, or we could. Some people have always said Nas never got close to Illmatic and shit like that. And then you've got ones who came out and the initial album was not good at all, and you thought, nah, there's no coming back from this. But then they dropped their second album and they completely blow that one out of the water. It's really interesting like, how it could go. It could literally go either way.
It's definitely make or break when you think about it, man.
Yeah, definitely.
If your debut is kind of lukewarm, I guess, then there's less pressure to like, because it's the sophomore jinx, isn't it? Like if you come out the gate strong, then it's never going to be as good as. But if you don't come out super strong, then I guess there's less pressure on you to perform. Like I'd imagine the pressure on Nas after Illmatic dropped was bonkers to try and top that. And and Snoop, same thing. Like they're not going to. But if they'd have had slightly less good debuts, then we might be in a different place.
I kind of dropped that in because it leads very nicely into who I picked. So the person,
seamless segue there.
Segue. So the group who I picked is because one of their members dropped an album that I pretty much think that she didn't think she'd ever hit that album again, and I don't think she would have, if I'm being completely honest. And it's the Fugees. So from Blunted on Reality to The Score, Blunted on Reality is pretty much unlistenable to me, if I'm being completely honest. I just thought it was garbage.
Agreed.
And you being such a Pras fan.
Me being such a huge fan of Pras, it was such a disappointment. It ties in so nicely as well because they're on tour or whatever right now. I'm not sure if they're showing up. I'm not sure how many of them are showing up.
Bro.
You know what's crazy to me, right?
Lauren and Pras are beefing in it.
Yeah. One of them suing the other or whatever. But I'm over all that shit. Like for a group that's had 2 albums, one of them don't even count. Like most people they would never perform any songs from Blunted on Reality on tour, right?
Never. Everything's
got to come from The Score. So let's say 1 album, right? And then you've got Lauren with also 1 album. I'm not counting that live album as an album. I'm not doing
100.
We're saying she's got 1 album. For her to still be able to tour, pulling all these people off those 2 albums is kind of insane to me.
Definitely.
What was Miseducation? Was that 90, 98,
99?
That was 98, yeah.
98, 99, around there. I don't care what anybody says. I don't consider that a rap album because I could count the raps on there. So that's more of a soul album to me, like a neo soul kind of shit. But yeah, the difference between Blunted on Reality, I think I liked maybe 2 songs on there. One of them was a remix, the Mona Lisa remix. Yeah, Salam Remy. And then obviously the jump to The Score is crazy. But I remember when I first heard Fuji La, because that video kept coming on. And I wasn't a big fan. I ain't gonna lie to you. I was like, okay, like that hook pisses me off. Like it's annoying to me, that ooh la la la. I didn't like it. So when it started blowing up and everyone's going crazy for it, I didn't really understand it. And then I think it was what came out next. I think it was that Enya sample song, Ready or Not. I think that came out next.
Ready or Not,
yeah. So that song was cool because the way that they flipped the sample and the beat and all that was pretty cool. Right, and then obviously Killing Me Softly kind of killed everything after that. I don't know. They're just it's a weird dynamic to me. Pras didn't ever need to be there. Like I've never understood what he was doing in that group.
But this is the difference between our worlds, right? So like I had where I lived at the time when I was a kid at school, we had like dudes that didn't like rap, listening to Nirvana, going, "Yeah, I sit 80 degrees underneath palm trees." I'm like, "What are you doing?" Like,
I didn't mind Prague. I ain't even gonna lie. I didn't mind Prague.
In fights at school.
Praz made me angry. That's how bad he was at rapping.
I didn't mind him. He had his place for me. Like, I didn't mind him. I felt like he kind of just, it was just fun. He just took him. For me, I felt that the way you men are talking about Praz is the same way, if I'm honest, I felt about Wyclef. Like, the only person I thought was lyrically impressive in there was Lauren. Wyclef or Praz never once.
And he could produce. Wyclef, I could see what his contribution was. He could make beats.
Yeah.
He could do a little bit of everything. And I thought his raps were okay. Praz, I just couldn't. For me, Praz sounded like a dude who won a competition, like open a box of Frosties, won a competition. You could be in a rap group, yay! And so, all right, we got to take this.
Is he Wyclef's cousin or something? Like, is there something?
He's
like
probably
that?
Someone's baby father or some shit.
Yeah.
I don't know. But it's just weird to me. Hey, you've got these two, got Lauren and Wyclef, who are clearly talented in some way, and then you've got this dude who's like, "Can I join?" They're like, "Oh fuck, come on then."
Wow.
Just a very weird group to me, man. I've never what's going on there. But I can't deny, the jump from the debut to the sophomore was definitely big.
The score's incredible. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Like, every track is hard. Like, even if you put that on right now today, it's hard. Do you know what I mean? How many mics for me still is like,
that was
the title track, the score. It's an incredible album, man. Definitely.
Yeah, it's good.
Good show.
Well, it's good enough for them to be touring 30 years later, so it must have done something,
You're right. I wouldn't have pegged that. I wouldn't have pegged you putting that on your list, to be honest.
Don't peg anyone, bro.
While of that, Prince William.
This is what happens when we colonize the show.
That's got too much hair for that.
Yeah.
There was no talk about pegging when it was just me and E.
You see? Hey, there you go. Wow.
What you got next, bro?
It's like a wild left turn.
From Praz to pegging, right?
Yeah. At least we know where the level's at, yeah?
There you go. Exactly that. What's your number 2?
Okay. So this one, slightly controversial for, I think, real hip hop heads, but so Cypress Hill. So,
really? Oh,
Cypress Hill,
wow.
91, great album, phenomenal album. I think it did well in like the right spaces, and game changer.
I agree.
Definite game changer. Introduced the world to Muggs. But Black Sunday was a movement when that came out.
Bro,
this is tough, bro. That is a controversial one. I can't lie.
Yeah, I'm not saying that, like, from a real hip hop head's perspective, like, I think you could probably put them on par, maybe Cypress Hill slightly higher, depending on. But I think the exposure that Black Sunday gave, not just the band, but like, I think hip hop culture as a whole, I think it shows improvement. I think Muggs found his sound, like,
I agree
more
with
consistently on that album. Like, obviously there was a gang of singles off of it that all did really well. Like, I know obviously weed culture was a big thing in hip hop anyway, but like, I think it opened up to like a whole different audience. Like, they were touring with like Rage Against the Machine and stuff.
That's what I was gonna say. It opened up to the rock audience that they had.
Yeah. Like, to the point where they ended up, like, a couple of albums later, they did like 2 discs, didn't they? The same things, but like one was a rock one. So like, in terms of quality, I don't necessarily feel like they, especially Sendok and Be Real, I don't feel they really upped their game.
No, they
Muggs' production, I think, was a bit tighter. I think it was much more consistent, and you got a real idea of like what their sound was like, and then obviously that opened Muggs up to do like different stuff with, you know, Alchemist and
I don't know, bro. I kind of agree with you, but at the same time, I don't agree with you because
that's what
I see exactly what you're saying, and I agree with what you're saying totally because I know where you're going. And I've kind of tweeted something similar a couple of years ago because I think Black Sunday is I think that album is crazy, like from top to bottom.
Great,
100%.
I don't really skip. I love every song on the album. I think pretty much. The Cypress Hill debut album is also dope, though.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. So it's not like they went from like a mid album to a great album. Yeah, but I see what you mean about Muggs. Like his sound was defined on Black Sunday 100%.
Yeah, and I just think it
for me because a lot of people say that their debut is their greatest album to this day.
I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that. To be honest, I wouldn't say that they're wrong and that I'm right. I just think in terms of exposure from like exposing the culture, like in terms of expanding your audience and bringing hip hop to more people and you know, doing commercial tours with like properly massive rock bands, and then people that wouldn't ordinarily listen to your music are seeing you on tour and then buying your music. Like I know they were big. Like I know the debut did massive rounds on like the American college circuit, and they were doing stuff there. And the reviews are fantastic, like as they should.
It's massively influential as well, man. Like
massively.
Tons of people sampling the hell out of the album.
Yeah, I just think in terms of like movement, in terms of like what they've done for hip hop, I think Black Sunday is where that work has been done, to be honest, like just because of the exposure. So like I'm not saying it's better, I'm just saying it was more polished, I guess.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, that's a good point now. Good shout out. Say that again, bro.
What do you think about that pick?
Yeah, and that's why I said it was controversial, because for me, obviously a lot of sentimental value comes into it, and that first Cypress Hill album for me just like blew my mind. You know what I mean? I would have been like 11 or something when it dropped, and I remember having singles, like, you know what I mean, of that. Like my sister would have singles, and I'd be always going in her room and putting it on the, like, listening to them. I didn't even own it, but I just kept wanting to hear it. And I used to kill that album a lot. Obviously, as you get older, you get your own material and catalog and stuff. Even maybe about a month ago, I was in the gym and I was just listening to that whole album again. I think it's just start to finish, man. I think it's incredible. But Black Sunday is the same. So I do agree with everything you said, but I think that the key point is probably what Slack said when he said that, because it's like dope to dope, just different levels of dopeness. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's a great shout though, because I totally get where he's going, man. I get it. But yeah, shout to Cypress Hill, man. They don't get mentioned enough. Their first 4 albums, man. You know what I mean? They potentially got a group of multiple classics. You know what I mean? And like I've said before,
I you look at a basic level, like first album, amazing, but it was exposed to like a hip hop audience, like a core group of people. Whereas like Black Sunday was for the masses. Do you know what I mean? Like everybody had that album. Yeah.
Like even I saw them live in December. They performed at Ice Cube in O2, and majority of the songs they done weren't even from the debut, which is surprising.
Sunday,
you know what I mean? Yeah, it was just
Black
like
Sunday that they did most, isn't it?
Mainly, yeah. Do you know what I mean? So, but man, that's a good shout. Shout out to Cypress Hill, man. All right, I'm gonna go with the locks, man. For this one, and I think that will be controversial because a lot of people, I don't know, a lot of people ain't got a lot of love for the second album. Do you know what I mean? Because of the Swiss production. But for me, once again, I've probably told the story before. I remember when we was hearing locks on certain little bits and pieces, and I remember going to the record shop in Tottenham, man, and we were saying to the guy, like, Sonny, like, oh, how can we hear more of the Lux? And he was like, oh, you got to wait for Puff's album because he was about to drop that.
Yeah, I
Diddy and
remember
the
you telling
Family.
me that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we had to wait for that. So there was an anticipation that I wanted to hear more from Lux. Then obviously them dropping the Bad Boy album, for me, it never clicked, man. Like, and I'm not just saying it because of hindsight. I honestly can say it just didn't work for me straight away. There was obviously Money, Power, Respect, the single, super hard. Like, I still love that to this day. That's ridiculous. Like,
But they
I
also
think
had
is it
If You
that
Think I'm Jiggy on there.
bro, I hate that. That's what I'm saying. Like, I can't. Yeah, that's the one with that. Like, I can't stand it, man. There's like maybe 4 songs on the debut album that I'm feeling. And we know lyrically their potential. But for me, when they dropped We Are the Streets, that's a hard album. Now, I am not the biggest Swiss Beats fan. I've said that before. But it just works. So even though I'm not a big fan of Swiss's production, I just think everything works on that album, man. Like, I don't know if it's because it's Lux that's doing it and rapping over those beats, but it just works, man. From the opening, I had to pull it up because I was trying to remind myself of the songs, man. But yeah, from the beginning, obviously you got Can I Live, Breathe Easy, Felony, Wild Out, Blood Pressure, Recognize. There's so much heat on that album, man. And I remember just 2000, that was getting played a lot, man, when it dropped. So for me, if I'm talking about improvement on a personal level, I don't even play Money, Power, Respect other than maybe 2 songs. I don't even play it. Maybe 2 songs I'll play. Is it Can I Live? And obviously the title track, The Heist, I think, but I don't even play it. But the second one I play a lot, man. So yeah, man, that's my Lux.
I don't know. I don't know if my bias plays too much into the Lux because I obviously I didn't fuck with anything Bad Boy, to be honest with you, because after Big died, really, because I just think a lot of it wasn't good, if I'm being honest with you. I don't think Puff did right by the Lux either. I think he was trying to push them to this. Like, you could see what the Lux were from their features on Biggie's albums and everything else that they was doing. Yeah. So why he was trying to put them in shiny suits, it just never made sense to me at all. Yeah. And I think if Biggie was around, I don't think that would have I don't think he would have let that shit fly. I think he would have had them on some grimy shit with Junior Mafia and with the Commission and stuff.
Yeah.
So just to see, I could probably count on one hand the amount of times I've listened to that album. I bought it at the time just because I bought everything, but I was never. Even the cover pisses me off. Like, seeing Chic and Jada and Styles in fucking clown suits, it really annoyed me, man.
You could tell they weren't into it.
You could tell they weren't comfortable.
They're not comfortable, man.
Even the sing, like, If You Think I'm Jiggy, like Jada Kiss singing the hook to If You Think I'm Jiggy.
Horrible,
it was horrible, man. It wasn't
horrible, man.
So,
like you said, what you heard of them before, man.
Classic, and I'm like, nah, that's not a classic album, man. The Lux will tell you that that's not a classic album. They work so hard to get away from that album, like the whole Free the Lux and all of that.
Yeah.
Like, if it was a classic album, the people that made it was desperately trying to get away from it. That kind of tells you everything about it.
Exactly.
But everything's a classic now, innit? Revisionist, everything that came out in the 90s was a classic, whether it was good or not. The second album, I know what you're saying, like, you know, it's got some songs on there, but I think the Lux were rapping so hard on that album that it almost defeats how shit Swiss Beats' beats are.
Yeah.
I think that they were going so crazy. Like, their verses on the album, all three of them were just killing every single verse that they were spitting on the album. So I think that kind of overrides how annoying Swiss Beats' music is for me. But it's tough because I think the Lux were good on both, but I just think they were just totally different albums. Like, Puff was trying to get them to go one way, Swiss was trying to get them to go another way. But yeah, I see where you're going with it.
Who you got, bro?
All right. Let's see my next one. I'll try and go not too obvious. All right, I'm gonna go for all right, I'm gonna go for Ludacris.
Yes.
Okay.
Ludacris's first album is not a bad album by any means. I think it's a really good album, but it's also a kind of interpolation of Incognito and some added tracks. So he kind of
exactly.
So is it actually his debut? Because Incognito, no one really got that. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't until Back for the First Time that was solidified as his debut. So I think Incognito is more of like a demo kind of thing. Like you still have to try and find the album. So some of the songs on there changed up a little bit. You might have a different beat, but the same verse and stuff like that. But I still think it's a good album. Like you had like What's Your Fantasy on there, which is still an absolute banger to me. Like I absolutely love that song. Southern Hospitality on there. You got Neptune's production. You got Timbo production. So I still think it's a really good album. However, when he dropped his Word of Mouth album, that's when everything went to the moon. Area codes and everything else that he had on the album. Someone said the other day that they threw the album on and they was just like every song was like a single.
Could have been a single, definitely.
There's like five or six off of that in there, like
right there. Like, that doesn't happen nowadays. You know what I mean? We don't have albums where you've got like.
I remember selling that album.
Yeah, it was them times there, 2003-ish around there. Yeah. The peak times. And I think Ludacris was just way better on the album. He sounded more confident. Yeah, he knew exactly what he wanted to do with the album. You know what I mean? And on the first one, it was more of a introduction of like I'm the party guy, I'm that funny guy, I'm that character. The second album was he was just more comfortable with being that kind of guy. I just think he was improved. I think the beats were improved, and it was just a better overall album. And it kind of showed with the reception that it got from the first one. Although the first one did really well, considering no one knew who he was at the time. I still think that there was a clear improvement between the first and second.
I agree. Yeah,
I remember they did a Southern Hospitality remix with Miss Dynamite and Maxwell D on it, didn't they? Like so, like, and they didn't change the beat to make it.
I don't remember that.
It was. It was like it was a B-side, I think, to the single. Universal like obviously pushed that because Miss Dynamite was on it as well. Like but they didn't change the beat to like make it more grime or anything like that. It was the same beat. So I was like, this goes hard. Like if they're going to drop this at a rave, someone's definitely getting shot.
No, that's Ludacris is so cold, man. Someone put a list out the other day of 50 wackest rappers. And
he was on there.
And he was on there. I'm like, you lot don't listen to music, man. I'm like, who on earth is going to describe Ludacris as a whack rapper? Like, he's probably one of the most underrated, man. Like, you can put him up with anything.
Remember when Versus was a thing, and they were saying like Ludacris is just like a party rapper or whatever, and it's like, bro, he's literally the only MC that I know that could potentially go up against Busta Rhymes in a Versus. Potentially. I can't think.
All I said about Ludacris, I've heard Ludacris on a song with Nas and Jay-Z, and he didn't sound
right.
Watch them both.
I heard Ludacris on a song with Nas and Jadakiss, and he didn't sound out of place.
Exactly.
I've heard that dude on all sorts of shit, and he's got a song with Scarface that didn't get washed. He's got a song with pretty much every higher level MC, and he's never been washed. And you're telling me he's whack? Then you're stupid. Like you don't listen to music, and it's fine. Like Jay-Z put it out a long time ago. Do you listen to music or do you skim through it? I think we're in an era where people skim through it so they can tweet. They don't actually.
100%. 100%.
It's ridiculous.
You couldn't listen to those first albums and say that he's whack. You couldn't.
Exactly, man. But even way later on, I was listening to Theatre of the Mind again the other day. I think that was like 2000. That's an incredible album.
He was spitting on that album.
It's so hard, that album. And I'm like, this is like 2008, 9.
Yeah, that's the one with Jay and Nas on it, isn't it? Like,
that's that one, with Jay and Nas on it, yeah. And it's like that's like 2008, 2009. So do you know what I mean? It had been out like 10 years. Do you know what I mean? And dropped about 5 albums or something. I don't know by then. Like, and even if you hear him like on the Conway track a couple of years ago, or he's still spitting, like he's still hard. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I don't know what people want from people, man, but Ludacris is cold, man. And yeah, Word of Mouth's a great shout, man. That's an incredible album from the very beginning, man. Coming to America, bang.
Yeah, I think
like,
Ludacris is one of them artists that suffers from the animation. Like Redman has it, Busta has it, MOP has it. And I think people think because you spit a certain way, because you're hype, you're animated, that you can't rap well.
Yeah.
But it's like, listen to what it's not just the fact that they're always hype, because he's not always hype on every song.
No, exactly.
There's songs where he's not. Buster's not hype on every song. There's songs where he's whispering. There's songs where he's doing all kinds of. He wasn't hype on "Put Your Hands Where My Eyes Can See." Was he? No.
Exactly.
So I don't know, man. Like I don't know what people want, but Ludacris can rap, and like that's it for me. No one can tell me anything different, man. Simple as that. What you got next, bro?
Who's it? It's me now.
It's Potter.
Who's it? Oh, sorry, bro. Sorry.
Yeah. All right. So this is a little bit out there. So bear with me. So around.
Put out a disclaimer.
No, yeah. So around like 2000, I was working in a record shop, and I used to get sent promos and stuff. And I got sent this promo from this weird record label of a compilation called Battle Axe Warriors, and I'm like, what is this? Because I'm into like Conan and stuff like that. So I was like, I'll give this a listen. Turns out they're a Canadian hip hop label. Like, I had no idea who they were. And then I found this group called Swollen Members. Pause.
Oh yeah, I remember
that. So I got into them, and they're really dope. So there's like a producer, Rob the Viking. There's a rapper, Mad Child. You might have seen him on the Team Backpack things.
Mad Child, yeah.
And another guy called Prevail. And it was like I was like in a real skateboardery kind of vibe at the time. And it was like that kind of hip hop. It was like skateboardery with like references to like dragons and wizards and stuff like that. So I was like, this is dope. And then they brought another album out 2 years after that. That one was called Balance. They brought another album out 2 years after called Bad Dreams. And this one blew me away, because what I didn't realize is through skateboarding and stuff, these guys were linked in with like the Liquid crew down in LA. So this second album, this Alchemist is all over it. They expanded the group. Yeah, they got the production. This guy Rob the Viking does a lot of their production. Crisp, unbelievable beats, and he did an album, instrumentals called Beats to Plunder and Pillage by. So I'll pick that one up. But they had this massive LA vibe. Buck 50 was on it. Sun Dubious, Planet Asia, Charlie Tuna from J5. And I was like, this is phenomenal group, man. Honestly, they're really good. Mad Child went off the rails like on drugs and stuff a few years after, but the progression, I thought that was I looked at that when I heard Balance was like the first time I heard Dilated Platform. So it was that kind of vibe. And then when I was just getting into Dilated around that time as well. And then when Bad Dreams came out and it had all of these guys that I've been listening to for like the past 2 years, Alchemist production all over, Evidence has been producing on it as well. I was like, this is brilliant. And then I just listened to exclusively like pretty much Canadian rap from that label for about 6 months, because they had like a massive artist roster. Sun Dubious signed to them, Buck 50 was signed to them as well. It's just real dope backpacker hip hop music like at the time, and see the progression from like these weird skateboardy kids that were talking about dragons to like this fully fledged proper rap group with like Mad Child at the time was an animal, man. I would have put him up against, at that point, I would have put him up against like that point Eminem, and I would have been like, I don't know who's going to win this battle. Like, he was that dope. And there's still flashes of it. You can see flashes of it, but he's like sort of born again now, sorted his life out. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how much discussion there's going to be on that because I doubt either of you have heard.
Nah, but I'm definitely going to tap in though.
I've heard of some of the members, but I didn't listen to them because I didn't like their name. I thought that was shit.
Yeah, I mean, and I get that because that is a different.
I was like, what is this? And I just kind of,
I'm really into this group. What are they called? Swollen members. And
yeah, exactly. Like, nah, not into it. That's why it put me off listening to Cunning Linguist too. I didn't like the name. I thought that was
yeah. But I mean, like if you listen to that sort of 2001, 02 LA hip hop vibe, backpacker vibe, you'll like this. Like, and I found it completely by accident. And honestly, that group and that label was a massive part of my life for like over a year because they would just release everything was fire. I mean, there's a few tracks here and there that ain't great, but almost everything was amazing when it came out. And I would recommend if you had a dig in the crates,
definitely
have a listen, man.
Yeah,
like,
I'll check it out. I'll check it out.
You're definitely like the first two albums. It goes off the boil a bit after that, but
the first two,
definitely good, man. Really good.
All right.
Yeah, man. 100%. I want to tap in. I wrote it down. Yeah. All right. Cool. Good shout. And I'll tap into that as well. Check that out. You know what? I wasn't even going to mention these lot because it's too obvious, but the progression is there. You go. The progression is so good. It needs to be mentioned. Do you know what I mean? But for that one reason, I weren't going to mention it because everyone has put it their first one to think of. But Infamous is such an incredible album. It deserves a mention. Do you know what I mean? Now, Juvenile Hell weren't that bad, if you ask me. It weren't. Once again, I think Potter, you said it before. When you have an incredible album, sometimes it's almost like a jinx because it's just like everyone compares it. Now, I know for most people, we all understand that Hell on Earth Infamous ain't Mobb Deep's first album, but it was to me. I didn't hear Juvenile Hell till after Infamous. Yeah. So for me, I was introduced to Mobb Deep with Infamous. So we all know what that album, even though I rate Hell on Earth higher, but we all know what Infamous is. So when I went back and listened to Juvenile Hell, obviously it, you know what I mean, it don't compare in the slightest, but it's not a terrible album. If we was just listening to that for listening to it, say in '93 when we heard it, I don't think we would have been dissing it the way we do now. But for the sake of the podcast, from Juvenile Hell to Infamous is a complete transformation, like everything. And it's only 2 years. It's only time. Yeah. Actually, it might not even be 2 years. I mean, it's 2 years when they're released. We know that 93, 95. But when you think about it, maybe they could have possibly been recording Infamous like a year after they dropped Juvenile Hell. So really, it's not even that big of a time in between the two. So for the difference, and it's not like we were saying with solo members, when for the second album they may have brought in a few big hitters for the production. It's not even like that. Like when you look at the production of the first album, Have It took the reins and done it all, bar obviously 2 or 3 tracks. So it's still all them, like the writing, the rapping, the producing. So I don't know what happened in '94, boy, but from that to Infamous, it might be the actual, apart from Fugees, it might actually be the best improvement of a debut to
100%. It's that good. People don't ever talk about Juvenile Hell, and I think there was people keep putting up what album do you prefer or what run do you prefer. I think someone did a run of Redman, Nas, and Mobb Deep, and which one do you prefer? And someone said, "Is this actually fair because you haven't included Mobb Deep's debut album?" And I was like, "Yeah, you make a great point." So they only started from Infamous, but with Redman they started from his debut, and with Nas they started from his debut.
Not fair. It's not.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a really good point because a lot of people just don't even acknowledge that Juvenile exists.
I mean, I'm the same. If you look at my Twitter header, I've got like the Mobb Deep CDs as my Twitter header, and I haven't got Juvenile out there. It starts with Infamous and it goes on. So I'm guilty as well. And that's because I don't own it. So that's my reason. That's because I don't own a physical copy of it. But I don't want a physical copy of it. You know what I'm saying? So that says it all really, innit? But But yeah, Infamous is incredible.
Yeah. I'll definitely go along with that. I think mine was obvious too, or maybe not, because some people try and pretend that this guy's debut album was great, but it wasn't. Let's see if you guys can guess who I'm talking about. Should be obvious.
Eminem.
Nah. Tupac.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Tupacalypse now.
Yeah.
No one's going to try and tell me that that's a dope album.
That was actually like it was on my like alternative list. Like, so if anybody had come up with a fit, so and I actually say
If I'm honest, I never really started checking for Pac until Me Against the World, because I think that's an incredible album. Prior to that, the Strictly album I thought had a few good songs on there. Keep Your Head Up, I think, is absolutely incredible. I Get Around is one of my favorite songs of all time. But the growth between Tupacalypse Now and Strictly is he's a completely different person on both. And I get it. Tupacalypse Now, he's really young.
Socially conscious, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like, Britain's got a baby, and but even the way that he's rapping is different. The beats aren't great. Strictly is kind of like he was kind of finding himself more. And then I think on his third album, I think that's when he really came into his own. So when you actually look at his progression, he's probably one of those guys where you look at it and say, he showed improvement on every single album.
Definitely.
Yeah, good point.
I would say as well, like the thing in between those two albums as well was Juice,
right?
And that completely changed
him,
like at least publicly, like his personality.
Yeah, like the growth, the progression, everything was crazy. On every album, you can distinguish it. Like some artists, you listen to their shit and you're like, you said this on the last album. You already told me how much we spoke on the last album, or you're using the same producers. Like you haven't changed anything. But every single Tupac album has a different feel. Like
different.
The Me Against the World album sounds nothing like All Eyes on Me. All Eyes on Me sounds nothing like Machiavelli.
Completely different artists.
Completely different albums. Like in this, I don't think he gets enough credit
as well.
That's what I'm saying. I was just gonna say, like, he wasn't releasing them 5 years down the road where he's had time to live and grow, and what he's releasing these things back to back. Like Me Against the World was 95, All Eyes on Me was 96, Machiavelli was also 96. So he dropped those two albums in the same year and they sound completely different. I think that's a skill in itself when you think about it. Because people complain that we've got too much music now, but Tupac was doing this in 96 and he was able to make his music sound different. We don't, you know what I mean? Like we don't really have artists that can do this now. If you're getting an album from an MC, let's say a Ransom, you get a Ransom album and he's like, I'm gonna drop again. I kind of already know what the next album is gonna sound like. You know what I mean? So yeah, I gotta give him props for that, man. There was definitely massive progression between the first two albums. I was never a massive fan, but I gotta say that I noticed even back then, like how massive that jump was between those first two.
And I'm glad you brought that up, so I didn't have to awkwardly like skirt around his second album title that I can't say.
Go on.
I still call it Strictly anyway.
You got
to try to get that.
Can I buy that album called Strictly?
Say the whole thing.
I dare you.
Slap man in 91 going, can I have an album by F.L. for zagging, please?
I hate that title to this day. I really do. That's actually funny, man. But yeah, that's a good point, man. And that's why I rate Tupac so highly. And I'm not even getting down the discussion, is he lyrical or not? Because he can be when he wants to be, and I'll just leave it here. There's times when he is, there's times when he's not. But that's what makes him so great for me, because he's a true artist. Because like you just said about Ransom, and I've said it before, Ransom might be one of the greatest rappers technically alive right now. But I just still feel like there's something that's always missing with him. And I think it's personality. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. But with Tupac, like you said, he's an artist, man. You get every emotion, every feeling, everything, man. And you can't,
you know
can't
what?
learn.
I agree with you. I like Ransom. But at the same time, someone said the other day, Ransom sounds like if you asked like ChatGPT to make a rap song. And I was like, yeah, I get it. I get it. Because for me, Hit Boy beats sounds like if I asked ChatGPT to make me a rap beat.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, it's all right, but it's soulless. Like some of the stuff that he says, I'm like, yeah, that's fire. Like I love what
incredible. Yeah.
But it's the delivery. It's like, okay, yeah,
bar for bar. Not many people are touching him bar for bar.
No.
Like not many people are touching it. So that's why I don't understand why he would work with Nicholas Craven, because for me that's just like a work combination.
Jesus, no.
His work with V-Don is his best in my opinion.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, totally agree. Potter, you got any more, bro?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll be quick because I realise we're sort of time.
Yeah, we'll do one more each.
DJ Quick.
Yes.
So Quick is the name. 91, I think that was, and that's a good album. Like that's a really, really good album. But like there was constraints because I know a little bit of trivia. I know Quick was given like an amount of money to do the album, and the less he spent producing it, the more he could keep. So like, yeah, so he got rid of like, so the whole album like was done on a 4-track turntable, got rid of the SP12s, all of that sort of stuff. He recorded it. You remember the metal tapes that you used to be able to get, like the metal ones that you like studios. He did the whole album on one of them.
That's crazy.
And so still a super dope album. I'd say it's really important part of West Coast hip hop. But when Way Too Funky came out in '92, polished. Totally polished. And I think that is probably like the real introduction to DJ Quick's talent for me. Like,
I'd agree.
You know, it had like Robert Bacon doing guitar on it and stuff like that. Quick's playing all these instruments, like they're getting it mixed properly, all the levels are right. Like he stepped up his, like I know I'm never gonna say DJ Quick is a lyricist, but like there was a definite like step up in his ability on that. All of them really. I mean, with Second to None and A&G and Sugar Free, like that's I think for me that was like DJ Quick's an integral part of West Coast hip hop for me. Like I don't think anywhere near the amount of flowers that a man his talent should be getting.
That's kind of his fault though. That's kind of his fault because he doesn't he does so much stuff that that I'm still learning about now. Like he's giving samples to Dre that no one knew about until he's like, oh, I gave that to Dre. Yeah,
done stuff with like Whitney Houston, all kinds of people.
He's done so much like that. We ain't gonna know until he's gone. And people will be like, oh yeah, DJ Quick mastered that album for me, or he mixed that album for me, or he played an instrument on this album, or he's done so much shit, man, that he just does.
I think he is, for me, like for producers from that side, I think he's better than Drake, because this is personal opinion. Like Quick's a musician. He's a musician, and like Rhythmalism, like that album to me is almost perfect.
That's crazy.
And then he brought out a DVD around the same time called Visualism. It's between that and Balance and Options, and it gave you a real look at what his process is of like how he constructs music. I was like, this is brilliant. And like I came to his later albums first, so I went back and got obviously Quick Is the Name and Way Too Funky, but you can tell the difference. Like there's a mass, like kind of like what you were saying with Mobb Deep, that like it's not a bad album, but you can really tell the difference between the two. And I think Way Too Funky was instrumental in kind of helping kickstart that West Coast movement around sort of 92, 93 with the Dog Pound and Dre, MC8, Compton's Most Wanted, all of that. And that's a real integral part of it for me.
Yeah, great shout, man. Totally agree with that, for real.
All right, I'll throw out my last one. I've got a few, but I know Slack's got one to go, so I won't reel them off. But just a couple ones that I was going to shout out was Naughty by Nature. Well, independent leaders to the Naughty by Nature self-titled album. That don't really need any discussion. I was also going to mention Public Enemy, but once again, that's like Mobb Deep. Well, no, because Yo Bum Off the Show was better than Juvenile Hell. It was a good album, but obviously, It Takes a Nation
The Jump was crazy. Yeah.
Listen. But the one I'm going to go with for my last one is Bone Thugs in Harmony. Now, tell me that I might be cheating, but that Faces of Death that they done. I don't know if you've heard it.
Great shout, bro.
All right, it's not good, man.
Let me interject on that slightly.
Yeah.
Are you going from Faces of Death to Creeping on a Come Up, or are you going from Faces of Death to E1999?
That's why I said I don't know if it's going to count because it might be cheating. Because my intention was to go from Faces of Death to Creeping on a Come Up because it's the next project.
Because they're both EP, right? Because Faces of Death, that was EP too. So I'd say,
true.
I don't think I've ever heard it.
Don't hear it. It's terrible.
It's done. Literally, each and every single one of them is. I mean, respect to them. They're trying to find themselves. Do you know what I mean?
It was sounding like East Coast rappers like Iggy. It wasn't.
They had no idea who they wanted to be. Do you know what I mean? The production weren't great. What was it? 92, 93, and that's a strong year in hip hop. So it's one of those ones where you're not even going to think of that. Do you know what I mean? So
it sounds like a demo, doesn't it? It sounds like a demo.
Exactly that. That's exactly what it sounds like. Exactly that.
So they're nothing like what they're like on Creeping on a Come Up. Because
they're nothing like that on the debut.
Not
like that at all.
They're not doing that. You can see they're trying to
mix properly.
Yeah. You can see that they're trying to find themselves. There's pockets of it. Yeah. Like there's pockets of it. They're trying to develop a style that's their own. But like Slack said, they're sounding like a lot of. They sounded like Tim Dog a lot of the time. Do you know what I mean? It was that time. Like it's like they didn't really know what they wanted to do. But Creeping on a Come Up, you go from that to For the Love of Money, Ruggish Bone. Like, come on, man. Like they're to this day they're incredible singles. So I think that progression there, man.
I was like, I've never heard anything like this in my life.
Yeah, me too. First time I heard Ruggish Bone, me and my cousin, we burst out laughing. Like, what is this?
For real?
We burst out laughing, bro. Like,
for real?
Bullshit. Yeah. However, literally, like maybe 2 days later, I don't know what it was, but I listened to it again. Just like, let me listen to it again, and it just clicked, man. Because I guess it was just a bit of a shock. It was just so different to anything else.
So different.
Yeah.
And then when I listened to it again, I was like, these guys are actually sick. These guys are cold.
Crazy.
Yeah, and then when I heard For the Love of Money, it was, and then No Surrender, it was over.
Hard, man. Bone definitely do not get the props they deserve. And you're talking about, and it's always the same at Das Effect. Whenever people bring out a new style, it's just hard because people can get bored of it quickly. But Bone, man, those albums there, that Creeping on a Come Up, E99, Art of War, those albums there.
Too long. If they put Art of War as a single album,
condense it a bit,
there were some tunes on there for real.
Trust me, man. But yeah, Bone, man, I've got to give them a shout for that. But yeah, that'd be my last one.
Good shout, man. All right, man. Well, I had Tribe down, and although like they got 5 mics for their debut album, I think the jump to Low End Theory, I mean,
agreed.
It's not one of them phenomenal album, but it's just something.
Low End Theory is just a.
Yeah,
I'm not a big fan of the debut, to be honest with you.
Bro.
I don't really like Can I Kick It either.
Not a fan. I don't listen. I never go back to it. Nah.
Yeah.
I also had Cannabis down because obviously his debut album, the expectation was crazy. Like he was killing people who went around in like 97, 98, they're not gonna understand how much Cannabis was, and like everybody was waiting to see what this guy was gonna drop, and then whatever. So his next album, 2000 BC, was way better than the debut album. And I'll say my last one is MOP. So from To the Left to Firing Squad. Firing Squad is pretty much a flawless album to me. I think that album is just primo just absolutely went insane on that album.
My favorite MOP album.
When I think about MOP's run, they've got 3 in a row that is incredible.
Underrated. They've got 3 bangers.
They're so good. Like, just
not mentioned enough.
Just play them,
and they're worth it. Slow Goons as well. It's heavy.
Just so good, man.
Slow Goons are dope, man. Some German
they
white
are,
boys.
they are.
Banging.
They actually are.
You could tell that they're students, man. For real, you could tell that they really they're 100%. Into it. Man. So that's my last pick. I had like Lil Wayne, but I don't think his jump from his debut, what was it, Lights Out? I think was his debut to the next. I don't think that was big enough of a jump. I don't think he jumped until years and years later.
What was that? 14 he was when that album came
out. Lights Out. I think it was like 15, 16, something like that when he dropped his debut. I think he was better on the Hot Boys albums than he was on his own shit, to be honest with you. So I don't include that. But yeah, we could have gone on, man. So as always, man, like, if we missed anyone or you're shouting at the screen right now, we're hoping that this guy drops that one. Then feel free to obviously drop that in the comments. Good to be back. Good to be home.
Yeah, man.
Back again with
good to be invited back.
Good to have the colonizer on the show as well. Colonize up the whole place. So who knows? He might change the name on the next episode. Like,
or we can get some corporate sponsors.
It might be my type of white. That's the next. But yeah, man, join us on the next show, man. We always have a good time. Let us know any topics that you want us to cover as well. Like, we're more than happy to take a look at some of those. So from me, your boy Slack in the building, as always, and my 2 extraordinary co-hosts, E.
Yes, man. E Major. My Type of Hype, the podcast that celebrates hip hop and not just the hype. Potter, sign us out, bro.
Yeah, thanks again for having me. I appreciate it. Like two of my aces, Potter, aka Reginald Macworthy. Like, see you again soon.
Definitely. See you on the next one, guys. Peace.
See you later.